Hello makers and welcome back to Mixed Media Masters. It's good to have you back. Now today we're going to focus on creating a 1-hour masterpiece, maybe even a little bit less, using some very simple materials to create an abstract piece that is really eye-catching and interesting. So by the way, we're going to be creating something that looks very similar to the pieces that you can find in my Pathways section in the Spectiva Studios gallery. So I want to be able to kind of show you and walk you through the process that I use and hopefully inspire you with some ideas of your own. Now to begin with, we're going to be working on a piece of watercolor paper here, my standard go-to Strathmore. This is 18 inches by 24 inches here. And I'm going to be using some basic black. I have some Apple Barrel black acrylic paint, which is going to be the foundation for what I'm going to be doing here, and a brush. I have a square brush. This is about 7/8. I think it's supposed to be a 1-inch brush. But I want to create something that's going to allow me to create some fairly square lines. And what I'm going to do, let me get things prepared here. I'm going to actually put a little bit of this paint on a palette just to make it a little bit more manageable. There we go, and I can feed into this as I need to. And let me put this here again. Try not to, spill paint on the piece you're working on. That's one of the major objectives here. But I'm going to start loading my brush a little bit, and what I'm trying to do is just get both sides coated. And my objective here is to start creating lines almost as if I were creating some sort of a maze. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to figure out, I want of course to be able to come in from the edges and have the artwork sort of be centered in this piece of paper. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start by just dropping a black line, and I'm going to come down a little bit here. Now what I'm really trying to do with this black line overall is find a way to weave it throughout the entire piece of paper, almost as if I were creating a line that has to keep turning and filling in what we're doing here. Now there's no right way to do this obviously, but what I might do is I might come in here and say, all right, let's say that this line stops right about there. And then I'm going to turn over here to the right hand side, and let's say I'm going to come this way. And what I might do is I might actually just say this line is now going to go back up to the top like this. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a noticeable white space between the lines, right? So as we go here, and now again, I'm just going to keep this line moving toward whatever possible destination, and I'll bring it across like this. And again, I might have to turn my brush over as I run out of paint on one side. And I'm going to actually bring it over a little bit further here. And I'm making this up as I go along, by the way. There's no real master plan on how far the line's going to go. I'm going to watch the materials and kind of get a sense of what I want to be able to do. And I think at this point what I want to do is I want to dip down. So I'm going to change my line, and I'm going to go down here, maybe a little bit further. And again, let me just kind of work on squaring my line up. And then an opportunity to say, how about right about down here will be the bottom of this particular line. And then we're going to come over, if you will, a little tiny bit. And then let's say that this is going to go back up to the top. We're just going to leave this kind of furrow between. There we are. And again, and that just is kind of one of those slow and steady processes. And again, a lot of the artwork that we create here is really kind of almost meditative in its nature. Right? We're not racing the clock. It's not like, oh, I have to get this done in a certain period of time. If it takes longer, it takes longer. But it's really just a process. There's a certain amount of, all right, what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? And I've mentioned this several times on this channel, but when we talk about abstract art, we're not necessarily talking about random art. We're not just throwing paint at a canvas and saying, there it is, I made some art. What we are saying is that there are rules that we follow. And in this case, of what I want to be able to do with my line is to come in here and again just create these opportunities for these intersections to happen. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of bring a line all the way over to this side here. Now, does it need to be just one continuous line? Absolutely not. What I can do is I can also come in here and I can terminate a line. And what I might do is say, let's come over here and let's bring this down a little bit. And then I'm going to say, you know what? Let's create kind of an intersection here. This will be our squaring off right there. And I'll just mention one other thing, by the way, as you're doing this, sometimes you might just have, things aren't even. You can always go back in later and even them up. That's not going to be a huge problem. So let me come down here now, and I'll say let's continue the line down here. And maybe what I'll do is I'll come down a little bit further. Okay, just to make, I don't want it to be totally symmetrical. That's not how I roll. We'll come down here a little bit. And then maybe what I'll do is I will conclude this particular line, at least on this end, by coming across here. Let me square that up a tiny bit. And then let's go and spin and bring it down like this. Again, one of the objectives of this piece of artwork is to be able to create lines that have this white space in between. The sharp contrast is going to make this stand out, which is going to be important. And I might actually look at this and say, you know, this new line that I just put in, I want it to align with the section above it. So I'm going to just stretch this out a little bit, make sure that these are kind of in the same place. Just bring it in like that. All right. Now that's one of the lines that I'm creating. And by the way, sometimes when I come in here and if I see a little abundance of paint in an intersection, I might smooth that out a little bit. So I can just say, okay, that's going to be one of the lines that I want to include here. And then I can also say, well, how else might I put a line in here? And maybe I come in here and say, all right, let's start another line right here. Another pathway, if you will. And I could also have it start over here and run across like this. There you go, like that. Nice. And how do I want this line to do what it's doing? I'm gonna start pulling this line further down the paper. There you go. And down. And again, take my time. The goal here is just to lay down some solid and fairly even black lines. They don't have to all be exactly an inch wide or whatever we're aiming for. And let me come over here. I'm going to start a line that's going to go across here like this. And let's connect it right here. We'll connect this top of this line down with it. And we'll say, all right, there we go. As you can see, as we're doing this, it's almost like we're painting a maze that we'll throw a minotaur in the middle here and figure out how that's going to work. I'm gonna come in here. Let me grab a line and pull it down on this side. And again, I think what I'm going to do is just connect these pieces together right here. These lines will come together as a single line. And I'll get that squared up nicely. And again, you can always come back in with a smaller brush if you want to do a little bit of just cleanup and make sure that these lines are as square as possible. And maybe your look is actually a little bit more of a rough line. It's okay to do that as well. All right, let me go in here. Just get some. All right, and what else do I want to do here? I'm going to take this line over here and I'm going to start bringing it down the left-hand side. Now, one of the things, by the way, I'll also share with you just as a technique is sometimes what I'll do is I'll just kind of come in and put some just rough lines in. I'll just say, all right, let me kind of speed this along. I'm going to put a line that goes here, and put one that goes here. I'll have another one that goes here. And it's not looking fantastic right now because it's really being sketched out. But what it allows me to do is later on come in again with my brush and clean it up, get it to a place where I'm feeling much happier about it. So I want to come in here and I'm going to bring this line down here, and this will be my bottom plane, if you will, going across. Okay, and let me see what else I'd like to do. Well, let me, let's see. I have here kind of a section, and this section is going to be hard to close off and make it into part of this this white area. And that's a plus, because one of the things I want to be able to do is as we go through here, we're going to naturally create some pockets where we're going to have a little bit more space, and I want to use that to throw in some drops of color later on. We can either put the color in as a separate paint color, or we can put cut paper in there, which is something I prefer to do in a lot of these. So let's kind of figure out what this is going to look like. For the sake of just time, let me work on sketching this out, and we'll make it so you can wander along a little bit faster with me here as we figure out what the framework is going to be, and then we'll come back and start talking about how to put the color in. Welcome back. Now, as you see, I was able to go in with even a smaller brush and clean some things up. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's not the objective. What we're really trying to do is make sure that we have good, tight corners and valleys, and just get rid of anything that looks unpainted. We want a little organic. We don't want it to look too precise. At least I don't. But we also want to make sure it looks clean enough to do what we need to do. Now, the next thing I want to be able to do is kind of identify some of the areas within this piece, and I still have a little bit of wet paint in here, so I'm going to be careful not to stick my fingers in it. But I have a section here, for example, that is kind of an open white space that would be really good for a spot of color. I have another one right here, perhaps here as well. There's one down here, there's one here, and maybe right in here. It doesn't have to be massive, but what we want to be able to do is really punctuate this with some interesting colors. So I'm going to reach into my my magic. Again, let me put this in the right place. I have my milk crate of old scrappy things, and again, some good colors that I can work with here. I have some green and some red, and here's a kind of an orange yellow that probably could be used here as well. And what I'm really simply going to do, let me grab a pair of my my trusty poultry shears, true story, and I'm going to work with this piece right here, with this orange piece, and I'm going to find a way to put it in that space right down there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of create a rounded rectangle. I think that might work in here. And just kind of dry fit it, just kind of eyeball it. Maybe a little thinner than that would be good. I'm going to keep a little bit of a margin, and then I'll just kind of round it off like that. So now when I come in here and say, all right, would that look good if I glued it down there? I believe it would. So that's kind of cool. What about this this section over here? I'm thinking like a vertical blue piece, and maybe this powdered blue that I have will work. It's not too overwhelming. And all I really need to do, and my apologies if I'm going off camera, I'm trying not to cut over my my artwork because it does still have some wet paint on it, and I can only imagine myself dragging pieces of paper through the wet paint and, not making it better. That's the objective. What I probably should have done is waited a little bit longer for this to dry, but I wanted to share this with you. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a vertical blue piece. Maybe make it taper a little bit as it gets a little bit taller. And again, do a dry fit. If I were to throw this in here like this, would it work? Would it look good? And I think the answer is yes. I think that's kind of fun. What about up here? You know what? Something brighter. I think that red color that we have here might actually work in this area. So I'm going to just cut a square out. Something I can work with. And again, I'm just kind of trying to dry fit, kind of a round rectangle. Just something that would be the contrast with all the 90-degree angles we have in here. Something that's just a little softer, a little rounder in here, and that looks kind of cool. That looks like it will do really well. What else do we have here? You know what? I have a space there, and perhaps one here. Let me look at this space. And again, I don't want to repeat any colors. I want to kind of go monochromatic here. I mean, not monochromatic, polychromatic. The opposite. I want to have multiple colors, at least 70% of the colors that show up in the spectrum is really how we define being polychromatic. And let me just come in here, and again, I'll create something that, is that going to be too long? It is going to be too long, so let me just shorten this up a little bit, maybe thin it out a little bit. Kind of an interesting shape there. Again, the objective is to find something that will fit into this white space right here and look like it belongs, which is kind of cool. And let's see. I've got some green here. Again, we don't have to use all these colors. I do have more that I can tap into. But do I want to put that green? I'm going to put the green down in this block down here, I think. So, once again, let's grab that. And I can just eyeball this to see how big this thing should be. And let's just kind of create a rounded rectangle. And it's still a little bit too thick for that space, so I'm going to trim off a healthy section of it like that. It looks like we have a large pickle here. That's what that looks like right there, but it will fit in there. In the last place, I think we have a space here that will work, and we have a space here that will work for colors. So we'll be, I've got an absurdly bright bubblegum pink here, so well, why not? Something that, again, as a standalone color will stand out. And let me fit it into this locale here. Again, I'm just going to create kind of a little capsule piece that can work right in there. And let me just give it a dry fit and beauty. I like that. All right, so one last, and again, when we're working with the spectrum here, you know, our Roy G. Biv, we kind of think, all right, we've got our reds, our orange, maybe there's a yellow we can put in there, blue, indigo, violet. I'm thinking we have a dark blue or perhaps a bright yellow. Could be used in this little slot right here. I have a choice between each. So one of the things I can do is kind of just do a quick, if I put blue, what does it look like if I put yellow? I think the yellow is going to win in this quick comparison. So let me pop in here again, just cut off a piece. And one of the things I love about working with a lot of the scrap paper is that, you know, I've used these things in previous projects. It's still fantastic. And in a case of a piece of artwork like this, how much color do I need? Not much. So a lot of times when I'm, you know, cleaning up after a project and saying, should I save this scrap or not save this scrap? Oftentimes, even if it's something just this big, I'll say, you know what? That's a piece of color that I can use in the future. So that's where we're doing it. We're going to get an opportunity to use that. It's going to be still a little too wide, a little too long. So let's, again, trim her down. Trim her down, and what happens if we toss that right in there like that? I think it's still a little too thick. So, now the nice thing, one of the things I love about working with cut paper is, again, this kind of being able to dry fit things and test it. If I was slapping a little bit of paint in here and later on changed my mind, it's going to be a little hard to do. But now I can come in here and say, all right, if I do put these colors in here like this, is it really enhancing things the way I want to? Are there any other places where we might want to put colors in? You know, I see a space, maybe we could put some there. But I think you have to also understand when it's time to stop working on a piece. This is one of the most important things I think I've learned as an artist, is that there's just a point where you say, okay, it's done. Stop messing with it, right? And if I put this on the wall and I look at it for a few days, my brain might say, you know, you need to put something right there. And I may listen to that. But for right now, I think this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to actually let this dry a little bit further. I'm going to grab a glue stick and get these things put in place. And then we'll come back and I'll share with you what the outcome is. All right, welcome back. Now, as you can see, we've gotten the pieces glued down, and it looks really good. Now, I love doing pieces like this simply because they're very straightforward, they're very easy to do, and of course, I want to be able to share the experience with you because I want to encourage you to also find your inner artist, and it really takes a couple of very simple materials, affordable materials, to be able to create a process or a project like this. By the way, these colored pieces of paper, you can pull them from magazine pages, you know, stuff you find around, your old cereal boxes, whatever you want to be able to work with. It's entirely up to you. But it's a fun project, not a hard project, and I wanted to share this with you today. So as part of the Pathway series, I'll throw this probably up in the gallery at some point and share it with you all. But anyway, I want to thank you for being here. And if you like abstract art and art creation, just learning about some new things, then this might be a really fun channel for you to spend some time with. And we're growing really fast right now and would love to have you along. So please hit that subscribe button down below. Anyway, that's what I had for you this week. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Spider. I'll see you next time.